Wednesday afternoon discussion at the Steel Center. Today we'll be talking about what is love. So you have many people leading the conversation, namely all of us. And if you've not yet, but especially Burden and Tyler, where's Kayla? You're here? But everyone's going to be leading the discussion by way of writing something down about love.
Yes.
That you associate with love. And we'll pick from the basket. So let's give ourselves a warm and loving welcome.
Yep.
Love from a non-human perspective.
Ooh. Does anyone want to say who, like, if they said it or why they wrote it?
I wrote that one.
Cool.
But I just think maybe not the best one to start with. But
No, I think it's cool.
Oh, that's cool.
I think, yeah, like I think it's usually framed from a human-centric lens, so not not I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, right?
That
Yeah.
was my first thought, like Milo and Ellis. You know what?
I've seen it.
Not the movie we grew up with, but
Every morning I tell my dog not to be near me because I'm starting a fire. And she wants to be near me. And I recognize in those moments. Sometimes I say, I love you. Like, I know you love me. Can't resist.
is anyone like a science or biology major here? Like maybe y'all know. Like mutual, is it mutual symbiosis?
Yeah, symbiotic.
I'm thinking about like how organisms over time are like evolutionary to like help each other survive. And like that's not love. But they depend on each other. But
That's cool.
Will you read the question one more time or the statement one more time? Sorry, I said it right as you took a bite.
Love from a non-human perspective.
I guess you guys were talking about like a dog or like something loving you. I was thinking just like two non-human things loving each other. If like that's like the dogs who mate, do they love each other? Or is it just like a purely biological thing? I thought of it. And I don't know the answer to that. But I mean like, you know how like lobsters mate for life? That's kind of cute. I think they might love each other.
Some animals have pair bonding, right? They live together for life. And others don't. And then some have mutual like affection and some don't, I guess.
How spiders will like the woman will like feed the man. I like that.
Black widows. Yeah.
Or like some deep sea creatures, the woman will like absorb the man into herself and become this like, I don't know, I think that's cool. That's love.
Well, I think it's interesting about the Black Widow, like eating her mate, because I feel like cannibalism or like trying to become one with someone is often like an expression of love. Like,
Yeah.
especially like with artwork, it's usually like an extreme version show how like obsessed you are with someone or how close you want to be with them. And I think it's interesting that animals are like really becoming one with each other.
and I also think that cannibalism is used in a lot of like queer metaphors.
Yeah.
It's also interesting because I argue animals are queer.
There's lots of expressions of love as a desire to eat someone too. I love you so much I want to eat you. It's like an okay thing to say.
Or like carnal desire. Like that's it.
Yeah.
I just want to eat you up.
I think it's weird to say about babies more than we do.
Because that's like an iconic expression. Like your grandma will be like, I just want to eat you up, you're so cute. Like
Also thinking about like non-human love, I also thought about when we are in religious and philosophy building. So like thinking about like ethereal and like above human plane.
Yeah, I was thinking about it in terms of like mutuality, like, because if you think about humans, animals, you love them the same way. Like I always think about that with Iris. Like Iris loves me in a way that I'm just like not loving her as a dog. So there's like kind of like difference between human and animal makes a difference. And I always wonder that about God too. Like I can't do it if God exists, which I don't know. But if God exists, then it can't be neutral in a sense.
Mm.
You know, it has to be of a different kind, or some kind of difference in relation.
I'm thinking about like something like Hinduism or Shintoism, where there's like locational deities that people like go to for protection,
Mm-hmm.
especially because they're like rooted in a place and like this being that they're like leaving gifts for, candles or money, like there's some sort of generational relationship there.
Mm-hmm. I guess in some traditions too, they're gods of love, right? They're worshipped for that reason. Like different from other, right? Or like different from a single god, like a special kind of thing. Yeah.
God of Cupid,
Cupid, yeah. Eros.
but I use cooler.
Hmm?
Yeah, but I use cooler.
Aphrodite. Mm-hmm.
We don't have any more comments. Go to the next one.
How important is physical attraction in romantic love?
Mm.
Ooh.
I got this one. I don't know. It's just something I thought about a lot coming into my adult life, like not being in high school and dating other high schoolers, and now, like, you know, feel like there's a lot of questions that I have of like, what are my important aspects of a relationship? How important is intense physical attraction if all the other like quotas are being met, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me personally, I think like outside of relationships, I can see someone like as physically attractive, but I think in general, not even just like romantic relationships, but also platonic relationships. I think when I get to know someone better and when I feel like a positive like energy from them, I think regardless of how they look or regardless of how their traits compare with like societal norms, I see them as attractive. Like I don't think anyone that I interact with is ugly because it's kind of like impossible for that to happen. If that makes sense. I don't know. I think everyone is beautiful. I know some people disagree with that, but I think if you can interact with someone and the experience be positive, then you have a beautiful vibe and you just live beautiful.
I'm about to give you a flower right now. I'm gonna shed it to you. You do that. So good.
I mean, do you think that? Okay. You were into something? I heard of this.
Well, I do like that.
I guess I'm wondering, like, is it different for different people? Like, some people are like, you know, attraction, sexual lust. For others, it's like affirmation, or giving gifts, or service for others, or quality time, as the psychologists call it, right? Or other things. There's like aspects of love that if those are present, people feel like they're being loved, or that's how they actually give love, you know? And I guess I wonder if it's just different for different people, like different people emphasize different things. And you hang out with people and they're like, well, how I express love and want to receive it is pretty much all gifts. Could be, right? Or all affirmation, which maybe like that's kind of important to me, but you know, it might be the same with sexual love.
I actually really like that clarifying question because, like even to the point of like physical attraction, like if you are dating someone who, you know, let's say is not most physically attractive, like it's not a part of love. You know what I mean? Like if you're dating someone and that person is ugly,
So true.
like you're not gonna feel like unloved by that person because they're ugly. Like it's not like a part of actually. And actually, I think that in my opinion, that physical attraction is something that can sometimes, in my experience, kind of happens like after you like fall in love with someone. It's like a part of like the things that you notice about someone, or the things that you like you find yourself like drawn to after you realize you're in love with them.
Yeah. I think it's so much. I agree with that. Of you might find somebody like attractive at first, and then you get to know them and their because of their personality and their kindness and their thoughtful. I sound like a grandma right now. I feel this is what grandma would say. But then like they just become so much more attractive. And I think too, for me, habits and like physical attractiveness isn't like the conventional, like they have to be this or this or this or this. It's more about like the lifestyle and like the habits that they have. And so, you know, going into like body image of for women, you know, you're supposed to be 110 pounds and tiny and big boobs and big, like to me, it's just like that's not a sustainable thing. Like if that's how you're built and you spend time in the gym and you're healthy, that's beautiful. If you weigh 170 pounds, but you also are find a way to move your body and eat food that nourishes you, that's also beautiful. And so I think for me, it's less of like a look and more of a, because there's so many different types of beautiful. There's not like a universal standard for me in my attraction to other humans. It's more just about like, are they taking care of themselves? Do they enjoy moving their bodies? Do they, you know, are they kind? Are they spreading good things into the universe? And I feel like for me that goes way into attraction a lot more than just like, do they have washboard abs and, you know, cool hair? I don't know.
I also feel like it needs to be said too that some people don't experience physical attraction. There is an ace spectrum, and not only do ace people date and have romantic love with other ace people, but they also have romantic love with people that do experience physical attraction and like choose to understand that that person like would not reciprocate it, but those relationships are successful anyway. And I also think about like physical attraction is so like bodily, at least it's assumed to be, but also for me it's really like a vibe. Like it's like like something that's like above body, and like being queer and like being around all trans people and understanding that like bodies can shift and like how you view your body and like treat it and how it changes like really can range in your life as you figure yourself out and become educated. And so I think like we can think about partners that stay through transition and how like but like it's just so interesting how our culture is so like emphasizing the physical. When to me that's like the most least important part of anyone's like give me your brain, like give me what you think about in the morning, like
is how you look on the outside, because you don't get to choose so much of it too. And I mean, like you can obviously there are like in situations for like trans individuals who are transitioning during that time, like their body is changing, but like that's just representing what's going on.
That's always been there.
Yeah, that's always been there, and it's just a way to physically, you know, show that. But I think I agree that like we didn't like to an extent we didn't choose the way that you know that we were created. We're all of what's inside and less of what we were presented as to the public.
I also think social media and like idol culture, which I guess works more Japanese. I think it's how I would phrase it here. But like popular culture, I guess, celebrity culture, it seems like so much of like it is tokenism to like wanting someone in your arm to post on social media, like for likes and approval from other people too. And like I do think that that makes it easy to get lost.
You're making me think about like how to the norms or like ethnic norms in terms of this, like, because people are kind of be sometimes there's language around that super accepting, right? But then like hypersexuality is like a mental disorder, and that's a little bit strange if you think about it. But like if it is a spectrum, it's just a matter of difference in desire. Then like people who are hypersexual and they just have more sexual interest or more sexual desire than others do. It's not as if it's like, but it's because of kind of judgments within society that you should have those desires. I also think too that like some people think about like bodily touch as being met independent of either attraction or like sex, right? So like cuddling with someone could be a form of love, and it could just be meet each other's needs with bodily touch, and in a sense just be, you know, not be understood as sexual, right? But still express love.
And for me, sometimes I feel like it's even more intimate.
Right.
We ready?
Mhm. What's the difference between cuddling and snuggling? Sorry.
Yeah.
I've really never thought about that because they are two different words. It's like snuggling involves like a blanket, just like something soft.
You can snuggle alone.
Like
but you
snuggle
have
in
to
bed,
cuddle-
yeah.
You have to cuddle, another person cuddle.
Oh, okay. It says, are there many types of love? And I think it says maternal and oh,
Yeah, that's
romantic.
my question. I'm asking like, are there lots of different kinds? And what are those different kinds? So we tend to focus on romantic, but is there like, love of a parent? Is there love of siblings? Is there love of, right? Like specific, definitely might be like a few different kinds or whatever. And what are they? How extensive are those different kinds?
I think too, it's cultural a little bit. The ancient Greeks had 7. I can't name them, but I know there were 7. But I think it also just changes across cultures how we think about those sort of distinctions.
Language too.
Language too, for sure, yeah.
It is. I do think it's strange how it's one word, but like in different contexts, it's completely different. Like, I feel like if I were designing language, that would make more logical sense. Like platonic love and romantic love. But then again, I kind of, and maybe it's just my queer theory brain, but to me, it's just like all a spectrum too. Because I feel like platonic love could fall into romantic love, but then never touch physical attraction. Or maybe like something starts with physical attraction and becomes platonic love, and then never becomes romantic. Like I think it's all like a jumbly maze almost. It's like way more complicated than it's accepted.
Yeah, and I think too, when certain ones overlap, they can be really confusing and like difficult to navigate, especially because as you're experiencing different kinds of love, kind of in certain points in your life. You start off and you have like familial love of your paternal and maternal and siblings and aunts and uncles and that stuff, and then maybe you move on to platonic love, and then you move into romantic and all these different things. And I think too, the way that like trauma and different life experiences can play into confusing different types of love. Like you were talking about earlier, how like hypersexuality, it can also be like a trauma response to certain experiences. And so I think it's interesting too, thinking about the way that life experiences can blend or sometimes make those lines of, for example, like paternal love and romantic love. Like sometimes if you have like childhood trauma, those lines are going to blur, and then that can get super confusing. Or like you said, platonic and romantic love, or all these different kinds of loves can get intertwined. And I think sometimes it's a beautiful thing, and sometimes it can be really messy.
That makes me think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think our ideas of love come a lot from what we see from other people. I know like rom-coms, I think they kind of portray like how romantic relationships should be, and like the idea of like soulmates and the one and things like that. And also just like parents. I feel like a lot of people's like the way they love is influenced by like how they see their parents interact growing up or not interact. And I think especially when there are certain types of love that are kind of like, I guess, taboo to talk about in public, I think that leads to a lot of confusion and a lot of one-sided thinking, or like black and white thinking when it comes to love. Like especially like platonic and romantic, I think those are often like two things, like either or. But I feel like there are so many other categories, and there are so many different intensities to both that we just don't really recognize because we're kind of, I guess, programmed by our culture to see it as either or.
It's also such a communication thing too, because you say I love you, and the other person says I love you too. Could be saying completely.
Makes me think of, there are these sort of different facets of love. What is the point, or what is to be sort of gained from drawing the distinctions, right? Like, is that useful? And if so, why? I think of like, the dangers of definition and creating sort of borders around things. Yeah.
Well, just the way I see it, I feel like creating those labels helps to interpret actions, especially when it is like largely physical. Like with my brothers or some of my closer friends, sometimes I wrestle with them, and that's kind of like how we just, I don't know, it's kind of like a bonding experience. It's a fun thing. But if I just start like wrestling someone on the street, then I'm probably fighting them. So I think having those labels kind of helps you figure out like when you're observing the action or when there's an action that is kind of hard to determine someone's motives. Those labels help you to navigate and figure out their way of thinking and what prompted that.
I mean, you can also just be playful with the way that you use words and define things in a way that ensure that all the difference is captured. So whatever that is, we don't know, but you strive towards being, I think, my goal is always to be like, what are the norms that govern the way that people talk about this, so that you can make sure that whatever the phenomenon is, we get all of the difference, get all the different ways it's talked about, in different ways it's experienced or whatever. And maybe at the end there's no like general thing, or like there's no general categories, right? All those dissipate into whatever people say, or whatever people do, or whatever the phenomenon is, right? And maybe we end up being silent and just accepting that.
What about love of music?
Ooh.
What about love of art? What about love of nature?
Yeah, they're different.
What about, I don't know.
How about love of learning?
Mm.
We can talk about that. I mean, this is what I was thinking about before. That's like something that it's central to my life, and I have to remind myself of that all the time. It's like what a mantra for me, like the center of my life. I love learning. Other people love that. And it's like a way of like me expressing something that's important. What gives me well-being. You know? Yeah, I think there's definitely different kinds.
And to zoom out from those last examples, like just more generally, love for the abstract, for like ideas, like love for religion, like that sort of thing. Like, how do you love something that is sort of indefinable?
Notice, almost being 2 decades on this earth, is that I feel like a lot of love is normally focused on romantic. And like you guys saying, like love for art and music, I feel like that's not. Maybe it's just because we live. I don't want to say just. It's not just America, but I feel like in like our Western society, it's like if you don't have a partner, you're kind of like. You're kind of an outcast, I guess. And it's like everything is based on getting married. It's like not. Instead of like it's not. It's like the end goal. It's not like the milestone. It's like the end goal is to be married. It makes sense. I grew up in a Christian, just like kind of household, and they were like, "When are you gonna get married?" And I was like 16. And I was like, "Okay, let's go on." And it was just, and like, for example, I'm in Bible studies. And I'm gonna do conservation stuff, and I was talking to one of my dad's friends about it, and he goes to my church. And he was asking about my family. I thought he meant like my mom and my dad, but he's talking about my kids. I was like 17. And I was like, well, there's no children right now, so I don't really know what that's with anything. And it's frustrating, but I have this love for wanting to be outside and in the environment. I have a love for through career, and all I could think about was like the love I have for the children and the husband. I don't even know yet. And it's just like there's so much more life than being a wife or being a partner or being a mother. There's so much more. Like it's not. like nobody really cares about your love for art or music or your job or your passion. They want today. It's always about the love of another person or like my family. I love my family. They're so important to me. But it's like all that it seems people care about is like my romantic love and what that's gonna look like to me, and not all the other things that I love that make me like who I am. It's not frustrates me, but you know.
With that too, I mean, I think it's interesting. We talked about this at career term for some reason, but when, especially as a woman, but as anyone really, if I'm like, okay, if I go in and I'm like, I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to be a famous artist or I'm going to be a successful artist and blah, 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 blah. People are like, she's like cold. She's ruthless. Like she's putting her career in front of her relationships. But why is our relationship with other people valued more than like our relationship with ourselves? Because my attraction to art or my attraction to music or whatever it's essentially me, just like aspects of myself that I'm exploring and ideas and abstractness like you were talking about earlier. So specifically for women though, why is it considered, you know, I've heard those words, cold, ruthless, like absent, like all these different things of like, if I were to focus and double down on my love for those things rather than my love for another human being. And I think that a lot of it goes back to societal norms and the patriarchy and all this stuff of like what a person should be, but also the emphasis that we put on like putting others before yourself, which I think obviously is good in theory, but you know, I think putting yourself first is not a bad idea.
And I think that's interesting. We were talking about all kinds of love, and I didn't even think about that. I don't even appear to me as a category. But if I were to walk into a random room or this room, and y'all had zero context, and I just confidently said, "I am so in love with myself," every single person would be like, "I would at least receive 4 say that." That's a green flag. And like, I do think it's like gendered, but I also think it's not. And I think a lot of it comes from jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, how dare you like stand there in front of a group and like proclaim something that's like so hard to attain.
Mm-hmm. Something I noticed about that is I do think jealousy was a big driving factor. Like if I were to call someone beautiful, I feel like that would, you know, everyone would accept that and everyone would be okay with that. But if that same person was to call themselves beautiful, all of a sudden they're narcissistic or they're self-centered. And I think our culture kind of has a big emphasis on getting love from other people rather than love for us from ourselves. And I think that's why there's like a really big emphasis on like marriage or relationships, because for a lot of people, the way they were raised and just how our culture thinks, we need someone to give us love or we're unloved. And when we do love ourselves, we're just crazy, essentially, or we're just bad people for loving ourselves. And I think it's interesting that I don't know if I would say gatekeeping, but it's like they're kind of gatekeeping love. Like they don't want you to love yourself, and it's like they want to control who gives you love, how much you get, and like if you get it at all.
Mm. It also is financially lucrative for everyone to hate themselves all the time, every day, because then big trillion-dollar companies can exploit your mustache hair or your armpit hair or your, you know, your tummy or whatever it is. Because then if everybody hates themselves, then they're gonna go spend money on things they don't need just by existing as a human being. For guys, women, everything in between, like everyone. It's like, you know, so I think it's almost like a radical I think it's a radical thing to like openly love yourself and not adhere to. It's like a protest to just be like, fuck y'all, I love myself, I'm gorgeous, like I'm perfect. Because then like you're kind of out of the strings of the puppeteers that are telling you like you have to do this or you have to dress like that or you have to like this person, whatever it is, you know, in very simplistic terms.
And like what's so crazy too is it's like almost brainwashed. And like, I'm like, I personally meditate, but like, I had a deep conversation with my mom once, and I was just like, it's just, I want to like confidently be able to say, like, I'm engaging in self-love consistently. This is like what I have for myself, but I'm trying to do little goals something she wants to work towards. And then she told me that that was too hard of a goal and that she didn't think that was possible.
Oh, yeah.
But like to be like 45 and not believe that self-love was possible as a mother of 3, who was the first time my family graduated college, is like actually devastating. And it's like it's kind of like a generational curse in itself. And I think she was thinking about it physically, but and even then, the fact that like self-love to her was like immediately going to how she looked on the outside.
Yeah,
is also really interesting. But it's like a generational curse as well that we have to reteach ourselves because they weren't taught.
yeah. And I mean, that's such a, and my mom has said very, very similar things, but it's such a shitty example to give your daughter of like,
It's not even their fault, really.
well, like, I don't love mine. Yeah, no, it's not. But it sucks to be like, you know, as your mother, like, I don't like the way I look or different things. And I mean, like, this is so big in growing up, and my mom would not go out or not go swimming because she didn't like the way she looked, and she could only go out in public if she looked thin. It was thin, always thin. So you're like, oh, 100%. And especially like that brain flush you as a kid. And then you put all of your emphasis, like we were going back to earlier about physical attraction, you put all your emphasis on your worth, on your physical body. Are other people attracted to you? Blah, 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 blah. Are you skinny enough? Are you pretty enough? Are you all these different things? When that's like you said earlier, the least interesting thing about any of us is how we look like right now. So that just like makes me so sad.
I think it's time. Pass her. Or him. Or they.
Pass them.
Switch.
Complicated.
Just yeah, fair enough.
I feel bad like backtracking this a little bit, but I think like complicated. It does maybe go back to like the different labels that we can give to love. And one thing that I wonder about is like what that might close off, because I think like a lot of especially romantic love is about like things that you're exposed to at a very young age, and things that you see and a part of like a set of like normal ideas about what love is and what love should be. And I think obviously there's a very personal dimension to it, about like what you want in a relationship. But like I really do wonder how people would express their love without that. Or maybe it would be very difficult to do that. Maybe that's like, you know, maybe we need these structures. Well, need is a strong word, but maybe these structures are helpful that, you know, give us things to do to express love in a general way. And maybe they are terrible. Who knows? But
I was wondering if like love is. Some people say that like love can't really be expressed. That it's like beyond words or beyond concepts. Or like not really possible to write a song for someone. It's not paint a painting for them. I don't know, like dinner. Try to express all these things beyond expression. Is that true?
I think so, and I think it is more for other people. Back to the spectrum
Yeah.
conversation, but it's like there are genuinely people who cannot feel emotion, like to a certain extent, and there are people that like have a problem because they feel too much emotion, like with like mood disorders and like personality disorders and that kind of thing. It's like not that maybe someone who has like extreme emotions because of like how their brain works, maybe, or I mean, I would maybe argue that they could love someone more. But it's just like your capability, like in your brain, like of feeling, the ranges on a human being. So to one person, it might be like something like, and they might actually love to their full content. To the other person, it might be all consuming. It's also interesting to think about.
Yeah. I mean, it's like people talk about sex and death and love and hate, these kinds of things all throughout. history, right? And that's the thing that people say, you can't put death into words, and you can't put love into words, and it's like, why, I guess I'm just wondering what that means, you know? Yeah, it's ineffable.
Ineffable and fragmented though, right? Like the pieces of what makes love are scattered throughout the universe and time, said through many different words and many different voices, right? You know, maybe the total sum of what love is, you know, not something we can get, but I think we can sort of see perspectives, see fragments.
What if we asked AI just to take all the languages, right?
forgot
And then
about
just like take all the words and everything that's said, and then all the paintings and all the music, and all the dances, and everything that people did, and then just like tell us what it is, AI. What is it that the humans think love is?
Just be a picture of Michael Sarah. And I would agree.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that
For
is
sure.
that is what love looks like. Yeah, easy, it's not complicated. Michael Sarah.
That takes me back though, like complicated or simple, because I think you can make both arguments, right? Maybe at the same time.
But also when I think about complicated, I think about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl effect and
The
how
what?
like
What?
the Manic Pixie Dream Girl effect.
Oh,
You want me to explain?
Yeah, please.
So basically, like, Manic Pixie Dream Girling is like this idea, like you see in movies, and like it's like this archetype of a woman that's like unique, but also a little mentally ill, but also like has bright colored hair and is like crazy enough to be different, but not too crazy enough to be like overwhelming. And it's like this like minimization of like individuality in femininity in general. But when I think about complicated, I want all the love I experience to be complicated. Because for me, if you love me, it has to be complicated unless you're putting me on a pedestal and you're only seeing me one dimensionally.
Bringing this back to Michael Sarah, have any of you seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World? Because there is a lot of Manic Pixie Dream
That's
Girl.
totally what I was thinking.
Where, okay.
or like Jess from New Girl.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, and also the other aspect is like only having the role to sort of teach the man something, right? Like as a sort of like tool for self actualization. Cool. All right. Friends.
Aww.
That's cute.
Like the show?
Maybe.
No.
Yes.
Just no.
No, just no.
Do you want to say who wrote Friends?
No. But like I wrote that most of the things about things, but maybe not also not. But also, like I was thinking about like friendship, at least in my mind, and also I think there's like some qualifying things, but is like kind of maybe the basis of a lot of love, especially a lot of love that we choose, like friends we have, and even like romantic partners. I think like a good quality is to be able to like be friends with that person, you know. And so I guess just like being able to like have fun and spend time with somebody is like the foundation of a lot of expressions of love.
I feel like so much of modern like ideas of physical attraction is so transactional. Like the thing about friends is like they might bring you flowers on Valentine's Day, or they might tell everybody that they're beautiful, but they're not expecting to get anything out of it beyond like saying like how they feel in the future.
I also think friends, the plural there is important. And I think so often you get this sort of, you get the puzzle analogy of love as this sort of like finding your other half, right? And I think friends is an interesting counterpoint to that, of this sort of like density of interrelations, right? Like a friend group is a different kind of love for a lot of reasons, but one of them is these sort of dynamics between multiple people.
I also think like the US is such a hyper individualistic society. And like a lot of the things that I feel like problems that come from our lack of community and like gathering and like information sharing and like venting and like being there for each other and mutual aid, resource sharing. And a lot of people like put that on one person and like are expected to like find their other half and then like prioritize their husband, ditch their friends because that's their other half and they're gonna do anything for each other. But in like my dream world, I'm gonna have like, or I do have like consistent group of people that are all doing that. Platonic, romantic, all the ways. Like I think community is such a fun like puzzle, I guess, but we don't all fit.
I don't know. I do think that there's maybe like a flip side to this almost, in that, and love is a strong word here, but like the community that is supposed to give you love and other things, presumably, can also be in some ways maybe a very restricting kind of thing. And like Kierkegaard, like in he talks about like love ish, and also like the person that you are in front of God, like as an individual. And I wonder about that. Like I think, like what is the relationship between love of yourself and love that you receive from other people? You know, when can that be constraining?
When my parents tell me they're proud of me, they're trying to express love. And I just think it makes them look good that I do. So this is kind of like a weird thing because they try to tell me that they're loved by saying they're proud. And I just have this sense of like my success makes me look good. It's kind of a strange thing though. Like, and then I have to be like, okay, that's weird. I shouldn't think that, right? Why not just say thank you for your approval, right? And it's always confusing in a sense. I don't think there isn't a case where someone's expressing love and we're sort of like, I'm not really sure, or how should I understand this? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we have to talk about God in order to make it unclear between self and other, what's going on, right? We can just have experiences and then be like, maybe not. Like you're saying that, or right, or you express this one thing with your behavior, but you said this other thing, or whatever, right? You know what I think there is always a sense between us that there might be some matter of interpretation or some difficulty in understanding. Maybe I'm just bad at receiving or something, you know. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking too, just in terms of friendship, like some people think love is like all beings trying to care or have concern for each other, like, and their interests, right? In a way that everyone's mutual interest is considered. So like some people talk about love as like an ideal, but it's not really an ideal that has a relationship like friendship or like a child, right? But it's like, and it's not just a community, it's like both, right? So we can think of love in that deep sense of like we're all cooperating towards like each other's mutual interests, compatible with everyone else's interests, to, you know, build a sense of community or solidarity, togetherness or something like that. We haven't really talked about about that, right? And I think friendship in some contexts is defined in that way. It's kind of like global friendship, right? Where no one's a stranger to you, where you care for everybody, you know, as if they were your friend. Have that obligation to them, you know?
I think too, going back to what you're talking about with parent-child relationships, I think it's interesting too with the developmental stages and how mature you are at different parts of your life, the way that you recognize love. For example, if you're a child and your mom is making great sacrifices of working 4 jobs, working night shifts, but she can't buy you those toys that your friends at school got, you're gonna be like, my mom hates me, so she doesn't love me. This is my personal experience. I was like, Mom, like you don't buy me things, like why don't you love me? I'm like 6. And she's like, Campbell, like I'm trying. Like trust me, girl, like I'm trying. And so I didn't recognize at the time that her working late nights and never doing anything for herself was a sacrifice, and that sacrifice was her way of showing love. And like I don't know if anybody grew up in like a first or second gen American household, but like this is such a common like stereotype, I guess, but it's true because it happened to me. Like my dad is from Denmark, and he didn't like he used to say I love you a lot because his parents never would. He would just buy me fruit. I don't know if this is a thing for anyone, but he would just buy me fruit, and that was like the way that he would show me he loves me. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it is interesting too, and now like the same thing in high school of like when you're dating, it's like a freshman or sophomore. Like you were talking about your son yesterday, and I was thinking it was so cute because you were like, he's going to get his little girlfriend, a little something. I'm like, that's so funny because I was at that point where he's like, I want to show her that I love her. Like I'm gonna get her this thing. Whereas now and that's literally so sweet. Like it's so cute. But like, if my partner right now went and bought me something nice, I'd probably be like, we need to save money. Like we're broke. Like do not buy me something like make me a card. And so the ways that you like accept love and appreciate love, I think grow as you grow. And I think that's a beautiful thing too, to look back and recognize love that you received, even though you didn't recognize it at the time. I think that's tough love too. Like there's been so many situations with like my older brother who was like doing things for me with like, for example, like romantic partners, like just dating the wrong guys, and him being my 8-year-old brother, like staring him off, like barking him off the door. The time I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. Like Travis, stop. And now I look back, I'm like, he really loves me. Like he made sure that didn't happen type thing.
Yeah, this reminds me of my grandpa never really expressed love to my dad at all. And or whatever, in the 30s, whatever. And my dad was always like really expressed love all the time. And then when I hung out with my grandpa, though, my grandpa would be like super loving to me, cuddling me and watching golf together on the couch. And always come to baseball games, super affectionate, And my dad was super jealous of it. He was like, why didn't you ever express love for me? And it's like, it's because when you become grandpa, maybe, I don't know, but it transforms who you are. It makes possibilities open for you yourself, right? And I think that's important for me to remember, is that becoming a parent transformed how I am from like I didn't understand what it was before, and then when I became a parent, I understood part of what it was. Like I would never let anybody eat my food ever. Like you came near my plate, I'd attack you. and then when Afton was born and I wanted to be fed, I'd like the most important thing for me was getting food in his mouth. And I like overcame that sense of don't touch my plate, almost like immediately. And that's super weird. Like that's strange, right? Because it was just not a part of who I was. So yeah, I think relationships are like that too. In a relationship, and you're like, wow, now I know something different this time around. I really want to talk about this subject, man. It's so bad. Is it possible to love more than one person in the same way at the same time?
It's cheating.
What?
Picking your own.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the question. It's cheating.
It kind of came up before, but like, I want to talk about polyamory.
Mhm.
Is it possible to love? And why is it not acceptable, according to some?
It's possible, but I don't think it's possible for everyone. I think the problem comes when you assume it's possible for everyone and you don't get consent first. Like, it needs to be a conversation, like, and I think like root of so many relationship problems, which, okay, internet therapist quote, but like it's communication. And it's just one of those things, like, I don't know. If you feel like you can fall in love with multiple people at once and you feel that happening to you and you think you could be anonymous and you can't be, like, that doesn't mean you're an equal human being, but you have to communicate that.
I think it's interesting because for me, I know like platonically or like with my siblings, I feel like I love them in the same way. Like I think my love just kind of boils down to how I love my siblings or how I love my family for them. And romantically, I do think it's possible that everyone can like, well, people can love multiple people in the same way. I know myself personally, I feel like that's something I would struggle with because not because I feel like love has to be on one person, but because I struggle even I didn't find love with like one person. Like that's something I'm still working through. So I think if someone has a good understanding of what makes them feel loved and how they love other people, then it makes sense to me that they can find multiple people that they can interact with that can give them love and receive love. And I don't know.
I think for me at least, like in theory, I think that polygamy sounds awesome, but then being in a long-term relationship that I am right now, there's just not enough time. Like you being in a relationship for me, and this is my experience, my values, all these different things. But like it's not just like, oh, we're in love and he's perfect and blah 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 blah. It's like work. Like it's not always fun. And especially if you're planning on having this person as a life partner, there's a lot of challenges and obstacles and sacrifices you have to make. And if you're making that for like 3 people, I just don't think I have enough time, like, or patience, or like, which is kind of a practical way of thinking about it. But yeah, I just don't think I have.
Well, I guess it's like there's like institutions, right? Like that enforce monogamy as like an institution of marriage, right?
Mhm.
And then there's like possibility of polyamory, which is also influenced by that. So we have to like think about institutions and then what we value. And it could be the case that people are open to only loving one person because of those institutions, right? And kind of get those values reinforced. Not necessarily, it could be lots of reasons. But there's a sense in which like I do think that not the kind of institutions are not constrained to some degree what people take to be possible. We see that in lots of other cases, right? So
And how important modeling is for what we think is possible just across everything. But I'm thinking of the 60s right now, for some reason, but as a sort of like the countercultural movement there. And how counterculture interacts with these sort of institutions. I think that totally plays a role in how, like, what we think is possible. Yeah.
There's a professor here who I'm just gonna use neutral pronouns and not say who it was specifically because I don't know if they're comfortable with lots of people knowing. But I was talking to them about their situation and they're currently in a polygamous relationship. And I also think, going back to what I was saying earlier, I guess in my brain I was assuming polygamy is in like a 3-way committed relationship when that's not always what it looks like. Which, from that perspective, but also in this person's experience, they're in a committed relationship with one person and then they each kind of have a partner for like sexual experiences like to share. And so I think that brings back to of like how important is physical attraction and how people experience that attraction on like a sliding scale. And maybe for people who experience like the urges to be a more sexual human being, being polygamous is an option for them. If you know you're in a committed relationship with somebody, but they are not as like sexual as you are, and you need to have an outlet for that. Why do we demonize like a sexual love when we like glorify platonic love? You know, obviously I'm in a relationship. I have tons of platonic friends, but if I were to have a sexual love with somebody that wasn't an emotional one, like why is that worse?
Yeah, I think
Societally.
is polygamy, are we thinking of it as marriage or are we thinking of it as like?
I'm thinking of like dating personally, but also I feel like what
It's
you're
usually-
describing,
it's
I would
usually
describe as open,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't say polygamy and openness are the same.
Are they okay? Yeah.
Generally, polygamy is marriage with multiple people. I think that's what I thought.
I thought it was just
Dating.
dating.
I thought like polyamory was like dating, and then polygamy was like the term specifically for marriage.
Oh, okay, then maybe it's polygamy. Okay.
Okay.
The open relationship is also what you're describing.
Yeah,
right?
I thought I don't know. I'm confused. There's a lot of things.
Like for me, like as someone that like is capable of that, has had experiences with it, I think it's really interesting because like polyamory to me is like me and my partner are dating, then I'm dating someone else, and then they're dating someone else, and then maybe that person's dating someone else. And like we all communicate, or maybe if you're okay with communicating, if someone doesn't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it, and it's just like multiple people dating different people versus like being open is two people dating and then like having relationships outside that aren't like, committed.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
it's like a web model versus, you know, if you think of people as like points, like the traditional, like nuclear family is a model of love, right? Like if one, the gag, I love it. You have like one connection between two people, and the idea of being open to different models of what commitment looks like is really cool.
Give a minute, but I think it's basket time.
A choice we make to be vulnerable, it can be shared in a lot of ways. It can be in a lot of ways.
Any flavors?
Oh, that can be shown in a lot of ways.
I do that.
I know, really.
It's so scary. Oh my gosh. It's something I'm kind of working through right now, and it's like they never tell you. I wanted to love someone, but then I realized I had to open myself up to be loved, and I didn't have an understanding of what love like was. I know people say I love you, but I didn't know what love meant. So trying to, I guess, like prepare myself for that was something. It was like stepping out into the wilderness without a map. Like I was just kind of just jumping in there. It still is scary, but I think it's something that hopefully I can figure out soon. And I think being able to be vulnerable with someone kind of makes the connection a lot stronger because you know that you can be your 100% true self with them, and that they'll see that and still love you. And since they see that, they love every part of you.
And I'm not sure love can even exist without like real vulnerability. Because I don't know, I think like neurodivergent humans and then doing, I think like it's really easy to mask and like mirror personalities and like see what people want from you and act like it, but obviously you can only keep yourself up for so long. And and then at a certain point, you get attached to like the version of yourself that you're catering to them, or you decide to be vulnerable. And I think that transition, like, honestly shocks a lot of people that their brains don't work that way.
I also hate being vulnerable. I'm very like wall, like very closed off, or I try to be. Sometimes it slips up, and then it slips up. But I try to be just because vulnerability, people know you, it's really scary because they know how to hurt you. And it's like you keep them at arm's length, but there's just sometimes there are people that really do just want to take care of you, but it's so hard to tell like who's trying to take care of you and who's like gonna take care of you a little bit and then leave you like out to dry. And so it's just like love is so like I'm talking about moms. My mom and I, our relationship's been way better because I realized that like she's not the only person, but she's like one of the only people I know that like rain or shine, like she's 100% like all in for me. And like I feel like it's been a long time when I'm not sorry, mom. But she's always like been there for me, I guess. But just like it's so hard to find like that kind of love where someone is so willing to just love you for who you are, regardless. But I'm kind of a mess, and my mom knows that. And despite all of the things I've done, regrettably, again, sorry, mom, but all the things that she's loving me despite, or is, yeah, despite that, and she sees me past all of that, like the person I am on the inside, and like all the good that there is. Not saying I'm great, but like she sees me for more than just like what than my sometimes my behavior.
Yeah, part of love I think is seeing someone for that inner like part that makes you light up or makes you I don't know, the thing that like like the vulnerability, I guess, the thing that you are not displaying always. The part of love is seeing that in other people, I think.
I think self-love goes into being able to be vulnerable, but then also, like, I feel like if you're comfortable with yourself, you're able to be more vulnerable, but also I think, like, I have OCD, and one of my things, like a common trait with women with OCD is like oversharing. And so I'm like crazy TMI. Like being vulnerable is very easy for me. I'm just like I would tell you my deepest darkest secrets right now if y'all ask. Like I have no issue with it. But I don't think that's from self-love. I think that's just because I have OCD. And like that's a trait. And so I think that, but like you were saying, it's more difficult for you on like certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think that's interesting too, going back from like a psychological perspective, how different functions of your brain, like in different ways that your brain works, or different traumas that you might have affects the way that you're able to connect with other people. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just found that interesting because I think, there's tons of stuff that I'm working through and struggling with. But like one of mine is being too vulnerable and like letting people in too much and being way too TMI because I just like don't feel shame in those ways. So I think it's a beautiful thing that like come to a happy medium on both sides.
I also think if you love yourself like enough, well, I don't like that, but if you love yourself like to a certain point, being hurt because you're vulnerable is less scary because you're gonna be okay on your own and like you know who you are and you know your truth and like you know your behaviors don't define you, but it doesn't like depend on anyone else's say because you're sure of it. It's such a hard place to reach, but once you get to that point, like it's kind of like what's the worst that can happen?
True.
Wrap it up.
Fine.
Thank you. On Monday, which is a holiday, there's going to be a movie show about Rustin, who is a civil rights leader, and Dr. Berenger is going to be leading a discussion on the 28th about it. But yeah, go check out the movie. It's a film screening sponsored by the Miller Center, and the Steele Center. That next week, February 22nd, 6 to 8, I love art and I love music.
Music and Alice, woo-hoo!
Yeah, there will be music in here. A performer, Sam King, will be sharing his resonant guitar music, ambient music. We'll be performing in the living room, talking about his music, then talking about his art, and then we'll walk around and look at his art.
What day is the 22nd?
That is a Thursday. Yep, Thursday night, 6 to 8. So please be here for that. And I think there's gonna be a dinner. There'll be food right before. It's like 4:30, I think. So please come for that as well. It'll be like catered dinner, free food, music, art.
So we have to RSVP for the dinner.
Nope. Just come and grab some snacks.
Perfect.
All right. And the music will be great, but also Sam's a really great speaker and he is super interested in talking about music and art. So it's going to be fantastic.
Let's be the first of many Alice concerts.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so too.
Yeah,
Of course, for many.
You can always come back. You can always come back.
Visit these cuties.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Please grab
I learned a
flowers.
lot. Yeah, grab. it.
They're so
Give it to
pretty.
someone you walk by if you don't want it.
True. Yay. Hope everybody has a good Valentine's Day.
Let's see what it's left.
I just realized we did this on Valentine's Day.
Makes sense.
Oh, wait.
Well,
Do you want these?
it's also like.
Do
We can talk about that.
We didn't talk about that.
We can talk about.
We touched on social media.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, for your mom? Taking them from our rooms. Well, I practically have four. Because they all, Josie and her friends literally just would sleep in our room. So,